Here we go. First, I'm starting with this quote by Steve Vai, who's an amazing guitarist. He he did a bunch of things, but he worked for Frank Zappa. He was the person, sort of this genius who transcribed Frank Zappa's music on to paper. So there's a very interesting brain at work there. And from, a true genius, he was so humble when I heard this interview with him, talking about how Frank Zappa saw something in him that was very unique and that he felt like every person had some unique gift and some unique genius, spirit to share. So Steve said this: everyone's a genius when they find what they love and throw themselves into it without any excuses. So I really love that. And I'm going to sort of, when we start with that, I want you to really keep that in mind as far as like what I'm presenting to you today. This is what I love. And so I hope that you can find something in it that's helpful. Okay, so this is how to create breakthroughs for yourself and thinking about art as power, not just an outcome, not just a product, especially if you're in business, but also just as an artist, not just an outcome or a thing you make, but as a power you have, as a power in the world, as your unique power and genius. So, first, I'm going to give you an introduction, and then there are sort of 5 or 6 sections. And then at the end, we will discuss and coach and answer questions if people have them. So, as an introduction, first, I'd like to think of in terms of sort of the mind, body, soul triad, that for each of my ideas here, I'm going to give a concept, or that's the mind part, a concept. I'm going to place you in a place in the world that I have visited and took a bunch of pictures of. And so I'll talk about that specific place. And the soul, I will talk about a specific artist. Sometimes that artist will be showing their art in the place that I talk about. Okay, so as an overview, my project that I'm working on is called 16 Journeys. It is basically, the idea is that I am visiting the birthplaces of my 16 great-great-grandparents. I'm writing about it, I'm making art about it, and I'm creating a show for my MFA show at the end of the year that will encompass a lot of these ideas. So I have visited 9 countries from this project because my ancestors are from Scandinavia and England and the mainland of Europe, and also different places in the US that I had not gone. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today a little bit is where I traveled. I did a study abroad in Florence this year, Florence, Italy. Traveled through Basel, Hamburg, then I went to Denmark, Sweden, through Amsterdam, Ghent, Cornwall, and then back to London for 10 days, and then I came home. Now, of course, I made this slide at the beginning, and I realized that there's no way that I'm going to be able to encompass all of this. So as I organize it, you will notice that I don't talk about Basel, for instance, and Hamburg. I was there for 1 day. I went to shows, but in the future, I will. I am going to sort of encompass all of this together because there were amazing things in every place. Okay, so how I did it, I know some of those are questions people have right away. How I did this. First of all, I saved a little bit every month for 2 years. I had money going straight into my travel account. So I was able to put a chunk of money away. That money could go for my plane ticket or my Eurail pass. I stayed in hostels. Hotels can be $200 a night, right? And I'm a grown up. You don't think about someone my age maybe going and staying in hostels. But I have to tell you, hostels are so amazing now. They're clean, they're safe, they're friendly, they're easy, they're people of all ages. So I would highly encourage you to stay in hostels if you decide that you're going to do some travels. I got a Eurail pass. I made the most of my senior and student discounts, but I got a Eurail pass for probably 20% off the usual price because of a senior discount and also a once a year in April or twice a year discount that they give. So for $600, I got a senior first class Eurail pass where I could go anywhere for 3 weeks in a row. Every day I could travel anywhere I wanted. All I had to do was, for some of the situations, call and make a seat reservation if I wanted to sit in first class. And those seat reservations you could do online, depending on the country, or you could call. And sometimes it was a little bit difficult to figure out, but I did. But they were anywhere from €1 to make that seat reservation. The most expensive, beyond the $600, was the Eurostar, which went through the Channel. Okay, I went from Europe to England, and that was €48. But if I bought the ticket separately, it would have been €269. Okay, so you see how already I'm saving a lot of money. Okay, so that was part of it, of those basic questions of how I did it. All right. Okay, so I want to sort of dive into these concepts, and as we go, some more questions might come up. Feel free to put them in the chat. I can go through them later, but I'm not going to stop at them now. I will do the presentation and then we will talk about them later. Okay, so I suggest, after thinking about all of this and all the breakthroughs that I have had on this trip and in this project, I suggest sort of thinking about it in terms of these bigger concepts. And the first concept is a concept I teach in my program called Artist Know Thyself. This is about understanding ourselves, understanding our patterns, and so on in mind, body, and soul. Okay, so this concept, Artist Know Thyself, the place that I'm going to take you to in this concept is Cornwall, London, in Cornwall in London. And the artist that I'm going to focus on in this little section is Ethel Colquhoun, or Colquhoun. I will tell you more about her, but she had a show at the Tate Britain, which I saw. So this idea of Artist Know Thyself, this is about all of our artist journey. In order to create breakthroughs in our lives, this is sort of why we do art. We do art to discover ourselves. And we can go a long way into doing that work, whether that is therapy, whether that is family of origin stories, whether that is journaling, whether that is reading about the mind and the body and the soul and how, and the spirit, reading things. In my program, I do a couple of assessments that I found very helpful. One is the Enneagram, and the Enneagram talks about our emotional patterns. It's one way to know ourselves. And it's very fascinating if you haven't done it. I do have a whole separate class about the Enneagram in the program. So that is really fascinating because it really talks about the patterns that we have developed, and they can change over time. But it really, about our origin stories and our families and where we came from and what patterns we've kind of fallen into or taken on by choice. Okay, then this other assessment is the Kolbe test, Kolbe. That is about your conative abilities. This is how you work when you're working. If you haven't taken it, I highly recommend you take it. It's 36 questions. It asks you how you work if you are left to your own devices. And it measures things like how much information you need, what kind of systems you like, or if you don't mind systems, you don't mind chaos. Risk, how much risk can you handle? or do you like safety and tangibles? Do you need to have the thing in front of you in order to work with it and make it like a sculptor? Or can you envision things before you create them? So either demonstrating it or envisioning it. So these types of things, these ways of knowing ourselves, I think are really important. And many artists, and especially women, but men too, are really drawn to this idea of knowing ourselves better. So I think in order to have breakthrough, to prepare ourselves for breakthrough, knowing yourself is a huge concept and a huge activity, a huge part of your spiritual and artistic life that should be ongoing. If you're just making art without sort of diving into your mind and your why you're doing things or what your motivations are, I think you're missing out on a huge part of art making and being an artist. Okay, so let me go to an example of this in a specific artist, and that's Ithel, who I will just call her Ithel instead of Ithel Colquhoun because I still, we all like, I battle with this name. It's a gorgeous name. But Ithel, she was a surrealist. This is me in front of one of the main paintings up from her, from this exhibit. Okay, so she started out really as a surrealist. She was a painter, she was a writer. She was very into the spiritual side of art, and she used her art to discover her own spiritual path. She was into the occult, into paganism, earth magic, sex magic, all of these other things. For a short while, she was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn, which was Yeats was also a member of this. It was about alchemy. Okay, it was about the alchemical journey. And she sort of got involved with some of these groups and then left them, and then became sort of an on the edge of them, including the surrealists. For instance, she knew Andre Breton, and she wrote letters to him, I believe, and she was involved with these groups, but she found that they only served her for a certain while, or she sort of took what she could learn and she then moved on. And also she found that like the surrealists were very focused on, they didn't want to include anything that had to do with the occult, really, or with paganism. They were more interested in automatic writing and automatic making and dreams and things like this. And so they sort of embraced her as a member at first, but then after a while, they felt like what she was doing with tarot and the occult was not surrealism. So it's really interesting how from the outside we see all these things as maybe very similar, but when you're in it, things can feel very different. And of course, the surrealists was a very male-oriented, for the most part, movement, and she also felt that acutely. So that is a little bit about her. She lived in a little town called Lamorna, or a couple little towns, but in Cornwall. And this recent book about her by Amy Hale is fantastic. If you, I highly encourage you to read about, these artists and read their life stories from their point of view as much as possible, which this book really embraces. And so then I'll go into her show. So this is me in front of that painting that's on the cover. And I wanted to show you some of the detail here. Now, notice in this piece how you see these little veins. She employed a couple of techniques that were very popular in the automatic art, the surrealist art movement. One of them was decalomania, where she would put down some paint, put another piece of paper on top of it, and pull that paper off. And you can see here, it creates these sort of veins. and creates these shapes that then she would manipulate as leaf patterns or roots or lines or scales or clouds or trees. So she would use these ideas of chance, then also,
Go out.
oh, I'm sorry. Can someone
Oh,
mute
you're in.
themselves,
I'm
please?
paying
Can
attention.
everyone mute themselves? I'm not sure if I can mute everyone. Let's see. There we go. Thank you so much. It happens. Okay, so she's using these sort of surrealist, interesting techniques like decalomania, like automatic drawing, like, abstract working, working very abstractly. And then she would sort of find the figures in what she had done, and they would reveal themselves to her. So it's in a way like this idea of artist know thyself. She would react to the canvas, and then the self or the figure would reveal itself. So I think that that's really fascinating. She also used the tool of tarot as a self-knowledge tool and a spiritual tool. Of course, what she would do was sort of make a splotch or an abstract shape, and then use that to read. And she created her own tarot deck, and each one of these markings is another figure in the tarot, using it from the sort of the original, the Golden Dawn tarot, where there were, it's a lot more complex than some of the tarots, but she really simplified it into some of these figures that had spiritual and elemental meaning earth, air, fire, water, and they all had different powers. So she used the tarot and her abstraction to get to know herself, to reveal herself as an artist. Here's another one. This is Dance of the Nine Opals. Um, and these were each figures that were sort of spiritual powers that surrounded this tree of life. And she really saw the connections between all of the different parts of herself and the different parts of spirituality and the world. So I think this is a great example of artist know thyself, because it shows how all the different parts of ourselves are connected, how we're always moving, how we're always connected to others, and how it's always a dance. It's geometry, but it's also organic. So I really loved that piece very much. Okay, let me just also read what was on the wall next to the painting at the Tate Britain. So this was 1942. This painting is inspired by the Merry Maidens stone circle near Lamorna, though its 19 standing stones are reduced to 9. The women inside the stones that Colquhoun depicted in the Dance of the Nine Maidens, which is nearby, transform into cores of swirling energy that connect to channels radiating from the earth. In the background are two tall stones located near the Merry Maidens, known as the Pipers. Other references include maypoles used in Celtic solar festivals, the 9 planets of astrology, the tree of life, and the opal as a symbol linking animal, vegetable, and mineral. Okay, all right, here's another example of her decalomania, which was, again, putting the paint down, putting paper on it, and pulling it away to create these patterns. So these are both called alcove. These two paintings show Colquhoun developing both sides of a decalcomania image. The earlier work was made in 1946 and exhibited at the Mayer Gallery in 1947, while the latter was not completed until 1948. The double image suggests both a cave and a woman's genitalia, reflecting Colquhoun's idea of divine feminine forces in the natural landscape. And, I don't think as she worked, she wasn't saying, I'm going to paint this way. She would sort of put down some color and then see what would happen as she went and put layers on. So I love this one also on the left. It's like, the woman's body, the uterus, the ovaries. It also looks like a piece of fruit, a pomegranate, with the outside and the inside of the fruit. So the colors are so bright and beautiful, and yet it has this sort of mysterious lit from within quality as well. Okay, here are a couple of other examples of this decalomania, of the sort of free drawing, automatic drawing. She would sometimes close her eyes. She would draw with her left hand. She would draw shapes and then paint over it, without, looking, all sorts of things to just free up the artist. And she felt like this power within her was part of herself, but also flowing from source. So, artists know thyself can come in a lot of different ways. And I highly encourage you to experiment, to read, to study, to journal as a part of your creative practice. It has really changed my life, in doing these practices, and has expanded my artistic practice as well. Okay. The second one is another, not all of these are going to be concepts that I already teach, but these first two are. And this is practice creative essentialism. So, but every time I talk about this, new things are revealed. Okay, so creative essentialism as a concept, I'll talk about that for a second. And then the place we're going to visit is Aarhus, Denmark. It can be spelled with two A's, one A. Also, AROS is how it was originally spelled. So it's interesting. That means mouth of the river or mouth of the water. So it's a fascinating place, and it's where one of my great grandparents was born. Actually, two were from this area. And then the artist is Olafur Eliasson, who is a Scandinavian artist. He's not from this town, but he has an installation there, and we'll go into that. Okay, so creative essentialism. The concept is, one, create an atmosphere. This is what artists do all the time. We like to imagine ourselves in our Paris Garrett painting and everything's perfect, or our garden in Provence. Okay, we create an atmosphere in our mind. We dream, we hope, we imagine things. All right. But often we lose it, or that works against us. Sometimes the atmosphere in our mind is more about negative self-talk than what we actually want to do. So in creative essentialism, I really want you to notice what your atmosphere of your mind is, what atmosphere you are creating in your mind, body, and spirit. How is your studio? Is it neat? Do you have a schedule? Do you have things set aside, your good tools, so you can work? Okay, so that's all about step one. Step two is making decisions. This is deciding what you're going to do and trying it until you either get there or learn a heck of a lot. Okay, and then three is about walking the path once you've made decisions. So this on the left is my notepad. When I first decided to do this project, I wrote down the name of the ancestor and the place that I was going to visit. And then these it's just hanging in my studio. So every time I go to a place, then I fill it in with black Sharpie. So at the end of this summer, all of these are actually filled in. So this I took before I went to Sweden. Okay, so this is Aarhus. It's an amazing place in sort of the middle of Denmark. And I stayed at a hostel that used to be a library in the 50s, not an old library, but like a 1950s library. It's called Roberta's Society. And it just so happened that it was the opening week. So I made a reservation for $16 a night. I stayed in a little pod that had a curtain. It had Wi-Fi. It was clean, it was new, the showers were beautiful and private. They had a restaurant, they made fresh croissants every day and soft boiled eggs. And so you could buy your breakfast, but I sort of parlayed that into lunch too. I would like take part of it for my lunch. And the view out the window of the front of the main second floor room with Wi-Fi and like a place to work was this view of Aros, which is the modern museum of art in Aarhus. Okay, so it's across this beautiful park. And on top there, you see a rainbow ring. This is an installation by Olafur Eliasson. So I will now talk about this. First, I'm going to just show you a few more pictures from Aarhus. Up in the corner here is just the local streets. And this was the light hitting it in the morning. It was amazing. This was from a church that I visited and from a museum. Okay, so part of my journey here was to visit churches in the villages where my ancestors were from. So I think this was in, oh gosh, I'm not sure what, but it could have been in Vaux or Malling. Malling is a little town, and they're all on the train line. So I could just hop on and hop off. It was so great. And they, in their cemeteries, they make these big boulders and then they just carve right into the boulders as their headstones. And I thought that was so beautiful. They're much neater than our, like, or English, like grown over, overgrown cemeteries and old looking. They keep them very neat, and they don't keep the old headstones as much as we do. They kind of keep, if your family has a plot, then you put the new headstones in there and you sort of move the other ones off to the side, which is very interesting. There's an old historical village, which is a museum. And I visited that to try to understand, how my ancestors might have lived. And I also took my sketchbook everywhere and would just sketch and watercolor where I was. So here's an example of one of these houses that was from the 16th century that, I'm not sure if my ancestors would have been rich enough to live in this type of house. They were saddle makers, they were farmers, they were pretty middle class. They weren't poor in this family, but I doubt they had this nice of a house. But I just love this house and how the light hit it. Okay, so then I went to Aros, the museum, and this is the example. This is Olafur Eliasson. And when I'm talking about this concept of creating an atmosphere, making decisions, and walking the path, I thought this was perfect because literally this is a path. It's a path that you follow. The light changes because each one of these panels all the way around is a different color. And so I thought it was metaphorically just really perfect to show how our light and our point of view is really, and our atmosphere is really created by what is going on in our mind as we sort of control that and look out into the world through our rose-colored glasses or through our dark glasses or whatever. So I thought that was really a beautiful metaphor. And also, it really made me realize how much light is a part of my own practice. And so that's why I'm showing you, the create an atmosphere part is me going to these places and making the decision to do this project, right? And then the atmosphere is just me being open and open to learning and open to whatever ideas come, like Ethel is in her work, just letting it reveal itself. So on my trip, here are some other sketchbooks. I started to be really fascinated with light. Here is a stained glass window that looks like a heart and kind of an angel on the floor. That's not what the window looks like, but that's what it looked like on the floor. These were just other roofs and ceilings from my sketchbooks that I started to really kind of look at light and really be fascinated by that as a concept and an atmosphere and a decision for this trip. So I make the decision to go to these places, to save my money, and to focus on light. And then I'm just walking this path. And, the interesting thing is the path always returns as a circle, right? When we when we do that hero's journey, we always come back to where we were as a different person, as a new person. So this is how it affected my own work. I learned how to weld. I decided to make these sort of lanterns that were kind of like globes, that were kind of like abstract, like Eiffel's work, but at the same time, really focused on where my ancestors lived around the world and how far they came, and these layers of experience. So those are just an example of how um, these travels have started to affect my work, and then they turn. Okay. All right. So section 3, question your assumptions. And the concept is the idea of being open, not questioning yourself or doubting yourself, but just being open to questioning what you thought about the world. This place is Newquay, St. Ives in Cornwall, England, and the artist is Liliane Line. Okay, she's an American artist um, that had a show at the Tate, St. Ives. Okay, I'm going to stop and take a little sip of my coffee for a second. When I set out after Scandinavia to St. Ives and to Cornwall, I realized I have a few more days left on my pass. I wasn't planning on going to Cornwall at all, but I just thought, you know what? I'm going to be open. I'm going to go see the show. And it was magical. So as I got on the train, it's like a little Harry Potter train from London, from I think Paddington. I got on this train, and as it got closer to Cornwall and to Newquay, where it was going, because I couldn't find any hotel or hostel in St. Ives that was anywhere less than $250 a night. So I decided to go to a hostel in Newquay, which was a surfer hotel that was only $25 a night. So I got closer and closer. It was rainy. And I got on this final train for the final leg. And I noticed there were leaves everywhere. There were leaves and sticks everywhere in this train. And I was like, what is happening? It's almost like I'm entering this magical other world. And it made sense because, of course, this is the land of Eiffel Culhane, right? She is all about magic. She is all about connecting with Earth and having the Earth respond, right? She is all about humans being a part of this magical energy of the ancient world, and I felt it. So let me show you an example of what happened on this train. Okay, so first of all, I just love the little horn. It's so old-fashioned. And what I realized was all the windows above, all around the train, were open. So as this little train went under the trees and next, like 2 inches from the, or 6 inches from the stone, side walls, it would cut branches and leaves, and the leaves would come in the windows, and they were just like all over inside this train. So it was almost like trickster energy. I felt at the moment, I felt like, welcome to Cornwall, right? Here you are. you are entering a different land. It was like in the hero's journey, we go into the unknown world. It was like Dorothy going into Oz. It was like, you know, the Shire versus, the land of Mordor or the land in Lord of the Rings. It was just this beautiful metaphor that, of course, I made up in my mind, you know, but this is how I choose to see the world. And I'm seeing this world and these stories around me by creating this atmosphere, by leaving myself open, by going to places that could be kind of like, to me, I didn't know, I didn't make any plans ahead of time. I jumped on this train. Okay, so, and I ended up staying there for 4 days in this place. So being open to that, the idea of, the trees are welcoming me to Cornwall, but you need to keep yourself alert, right? The trickster energy of who knows what's going to happen here. Be alert, be open. Okay, and so then I end up in Cornwall, in Newquay. And it's just this amazing place with all these cliffs, and it's on the water, and it's a tourist town. So it's grimy and dirty, has old buildings, but also has like really rich buildings, really rich houses. It's fascinating. And I stayed at a surfer hotel. You're welcome. There's our local surfer. And this is what it was. You sort of had to make your way up all these little stairs, and the showers weren't very, good, and the water pressure was terrible, and there was sand everywhere. But I just accepted that. I was like, I am on this adventure. And I ended up meeting the most amazing people. These Scottish kids invited me to join them for the pub quiz night. So I was on their team, and we did pretty well because I knew the literature stuff. And then I met these two ladies, one in the middle, her name was Grace. And then Hannah, I think, was the other one. She was going to graduate school. And it was so interesting that I was meeting all these people with these names that were metaphorical, right? Grace, she lives in Glasgow, and we've been in touch. So she's like, come to Glasgow. And I'm like, come to San Juan Island. You just never know who you're going to meet. And they are all traveling on dimes, right? They're not rich. I'm not rich. But this is how these things happen, by leaving yourself open to it. Okay, so then I took a bus to St. Ives, down to St. Ives from Newquay to see the Lillian Lyne show. Okay, so this is an amazing museum, literally right on the beach. And I had coffee and a Welsh pasty, Cornish pasty, and all these little seagulls were having babies on the rooftops. It was amazing. So Lillian Lyne says, my work is an exercise in seeing the world. I want to feel alive in my work. I want to breathe. I want it to breathe. I want its surface to be as skin, translucent, porous, emitting the fine, moist heat of the living. You can see this is a huge piece. So this was a retrospective of all her work. And I want you to just notice how she feels like her work feels like she's open. She's not painting the same thing over and over. She's not doing the same thing over and over. She's experimenting. These were like these female figures that she built out of random material, and then had feathers and painting and light on them. And then here's a painting. She also built mechanical contraptions and light sculptures. Of course, she had to learn how to do this. This is a career. But just seeing this work, which is so different from each other, these paintings and then these mechanical things, is very inspirational. She had the one in the middle, I think, is called a poetry machine. And the one on the right turned, so these circles moved. And just to see all of this work really opened my mind and gave me permission. Not that I needed it, but it just reminded me I can do a lot of different things. I don't have to stick to just painting. I can expand into different ideas of what art is. And this piece on the lower right, it was like, oh my gosh, I've made something that looked like that before, and I didn't think it was very good. You know, um, this painting here, it's just like, I've made something like that before, and I didn't think it was very good, but I love hers. So I just want you to remember to not question your art, question your assumptions. But when you make something, don't question it. Just move on. Just accept it for what it is, learn from it, think it's beautiful, and move on. Okay, so her work is just so fascinating. This is this long sculpture with copper wire wrapped around it, and the light is amazing. This on the left is like behind a cage, so it's hard to photograph, but it's like this female figure that looks almost like calcification, and it's like 8 feet tall. So really incredible, interesting. She makes these rocks and puts prisms on them, and then you can see the light on the wall. The light scatters everywhere. So fascinating. Okay, number 4, create chances, create opportunities. In Florence, Italy, during the Renaissance, the opportunities were there for artists, and they fought for them. They all had benefactors, right? They all had the church. They all had rich, the Medicis. They all had rich benefactors. We don't have that. But we have to realize that we have ourselves, we have the internet, we have each other, we have opportunities that we can create for ourselves in a different culture, a different time. So I'm going to bring up Michelangelo and a specific place that he designed, but also others. And one thing I just want to tell you sort of about my study abroad. It was 2 weeks through SIU, Southern Illinois University. It was through the architecture department. And what we did was there were 4 of us girls, women. They were all architects and I was an artist. But it didn't keep me from, that didn't stop me, right? I saw Italy, I saw drawing, and I said, I'm going. And they were happy to have me. I didn't have to be an architecture student. So, this is another example of not of like questioning your assumptions. Like just because something says something doesn't mean you have to believe it or follow all the rules or assume that you're not included. Those kinds of things. They say that women don't apply for jobs unless they're 90% qualified. That men apply for jobs when they're only 50% qualified. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you do things like apply for residencies or take classes. Think, oh, I'm not good enough to do that. Just don't make those assumptions. Just do it anyway. I'm not an architecture student, and I don't consider myself to be very good at drawing, but I had the best time here, and I learned so much. So every day we would go out to the churches and go and take photographs and sketch. And then we would go back to the studio and make our drawings in our sketchbooks and, from our photographs, but also just from in these different places. We couldn't use wet media in most of the cathedrals. So we drew and then we came back and we painted. And so this class, once I had made the decision for myself, at first I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not very good at 2-point perspective or whatever. But I made the decision to focus on ceilings and light. And when I did that, it started to develop this body of work that ended up being really fun. And it really helped my current project. Okay, so, and of course, I'm noticing light and ceilings everywhere and the shapes. And, so Michelangelo, I'm going to show you this, this example up here. This is the Medici Library. It's the foyer to the Medici Library, and Michelangelo designed it. It is so beautiful. I'll show you a picture, another picture in just a minute. But when, this idea of creating chances, oh yeah, here it is. So this is the entryway to this library. It's just monochromatic, but it's so beautiful, and the stonework is so fine. The steps are so smooth. The forms are so, beautifully proportioned. So this idea of creating chances, I saw this everywhere. These were three gentlemen. One was in York from last year. These two one was in Florence, and then this one was in Ghent. And they just went out into the street. They painted, they sold their pieces. And for one person, it was a business. For another person, he was just having fun for a day. That would be more like me. I couldn't do it long term, I don't think. But this idea of trying things and doing things, for yourself that you're not, because you don't have a storefront, or you don't have a website, or you don't have the skills to make or money to make certain things happen. Looking for opportunities, looking for classes to take or teach, or opportunities in your town. I just think it's really important. And that's what those Renaissance artists always did. And that's what people are doing around the world. This is also my friend, Bo Turnage from Friday Harbor. He's a dentist. He decided, like me, late in life, that he wanted to paint. So he started from ground zero. He, saved his money. He's a dentist, so he has some money, but he goes over to Italy every couple of years to take a class. And he's getting to be so good, and we met in Florence. He and his girlfriend and myself had dinner. It was so amazing. So these opportunities are all out there, and we have to embrace them. So every time I moved and went to a new place, I continued to draw in my sketchbook and take pictures that would help me sort of like continue this concept of light and ceilings and shapes and geometry. And I kept pursuing those ideas and those concepts. And that brings me to develop your own language. Okay. So the concept of developing your own language is fascinating. We all learn from our mentors. I have this idea of this concept of the artistic voice, that it has three parts. First is your essence. I have a podcast episode about this if you want to listen to it. It's Find Your Artistic Voice is the title of it, under the Metaphor Mindset podcast. So essence is how you draw when you're a child, when you're young, how your body moves, your natural mark making. And this painting behind here, this is a tree. This is how I tried to make this painting, with my essence, making marks that were just very raw. And it could be no one but me, because this is how I make marks with my body. So essence, then evolution. Evolution is how we learn from our mentors. We learn their language, right? As a child, we just have ba, 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 mama, right? We have our own little world. And then we learn language out there in the world. We learn how our mentors paint. We learn the basics, the foundational rules of art. So that's the evolution. And then edge. So essence, evolution, edge. Edge is where you take both part A and part B, essence and evolution, and you push it. You go further. You learn new things. And that's developing your own language. Okay, so the body part of this is New York. On the last leg of my 16 journeys, I got back from Europe and from home in the San Juans this summer, and I decided, sort of at the drop of a hat, to go to New York, because that's the last place. The last of my 16 great-great-grandparents was born in New Hartford, New York. So before they came west. So I jumped in my old Jeep and I drove. And I have a friend in Brooklyn. I stayed with her for 3 days, and she was happy to have me. and I found, and I drove into Manhattan. I parked in a parking garage. It was only $30. I was amazed. I could park for 10 hours or 8 hours or something for $30. And so that was like, I questioned my assumptions of no one, it's so scary to drive in New York City. I just took it slow, and I just used Google. I found an app that helped me look for cheap parking in New York, and I found it. It was 5 blocks from the museum. I got out, I walked to the museum, I finished the show, I went back, got in my car, and drove to Brooklyn and parked on the street and stayed with my friend. So, it was sort of a risk. It could have been scary. It could have been expensive, but I just decided that I wanted to do it. And so I did it. The show was Jack Whitten. I don't know if you know him, but I'm sorry, that's a little blurry. This is one of his pieces. This show was called The Messenger. And so Jack Whitten, here's a picture of him on a book, a Black artist who probably died in the early 2000s, I think. He created his own language. He painted differently than any other artist I know. All of these little pieces look like glass, but they're not. What he would do is pour acrylic paint out on the floor in flat sheets, let it dry, and then break it up into little mosaics, and then kind of store the colors in boxes, and then use the colors to paste down as a mosaic on his canvases. So he made huge pieces. He worked over several decades, and he created this abstract language that was totally his own. He created tools and methodologies and techniques that were totally his own, including this tool on the left. It's called the Developer, and it's like 8 feet long or 6 feet long or something, and it's like a rake. So what he would do would put down some layers of paint on a canvas, and then let it kind of dry, put another layer, let it kind of dry, not all the way, not wet, not dry. I mean, probably did it different ways. And then he took the Developer and he scraped it across the canvas, and it created these streaks. Not totally like this piece. This looks more like there's handwork and painting and different things. But that piece, I think maybe he did it in this piece. He scraped it around in a circle on this one. And these pieces are in his own language. They're kind of futuristic, using these tools and these scrapers that he built himself. And these mosaics that he developed this whole methodology himself. Here's another way that he worked in sculpture. He used the concept of, his past, his mentors, his culture, the idea of like these African sculptures and these sort of spirit dolls that they would hammer nails into and things. They're very fascinating. But he made them his own. He carved them himself. He would include contemporary pieces of detritus or garbage, or different things that were from his contemporary world, but they look ancient. So these works are his own language. Okay, now the last one, live in breakthrough. So the concept of living in breakthrough is about, let me look at my board here for a second, is the idea of kind of overcoming imposter syndrome. In a sense, exactly what Steve Vai was talking about. Okay, so everyone is a genius when they find what they love and throw themselves into it without any excuses or apologies. Okay, so when you're apologizing for like, oh, I'm not good enough, or you're an imposter, you're apologizing for, oh, can I do things this way? I'm creating this new technique. Is this okay? That just really gets in the way of your work as a genius. Geniuses don't do that. Okay. You throw yourself into it without any excuses, without any apologies. Of course, unless you do something wrong or hurt someone, right? But these ideas are so important. Okay, so the place is every when. And this is a concept from the Aborigines of Australia. This concept of the dream time where the landscape is holds the song lines and stories and places of the ancestors. One anthropologist, when she heard the term, she kind of translated it into this term every when, because it's about place and time together. Okay. So I love it. Every when. This is the place that we live as artists. We live in the past. We live in the future. We live in the present. And we live everywhere too. We live in our imagination. We live in the place we live right now. We live in the place that we're painting or remembering. Or we live in Italy. We live in Paris. Okay. Every when. And I want you to really embrace that and think about imposter syndrome. When you feel imposter syndrome, this is a full class that I have in my program. It's 10 modules. It's about imposter syndrome, gives the history of it, what it is, how it affects us. And when we think in terms of imposter syndrome, it's so that someone will find out that we're a fraud, right? That we're not good enough. And my concept is not to get rid of it, but to embrace it. This is what artists do. We are imposters. We are completely, continually reinventing ourselves all the time. So the word imposter, you can substitute character or new invention or evolution of self. But the idea is that we are not pretending to be somebody else at others' expense, like an imposter. We are reinventing ourselves every day. So we need to embrace that concept of reinvention, finding a new aspect of ourselves, getting to know ourselves, and then shifting that and tweaking that all the time as we discover the world and grow in the world. Of course, the artist is you. Okay. So after all of this, sometimes, life is overwhelming. This is in the Boboli Gardens in Florence, Italy. An amazing place. Big hedges and big ponds and big fountains. It's all oversized. But after we sort of think about, oh, Shannon, you can do that. You saved your pennies. You're probably in credit card debt, whatever, right? I say that to myself. And yes, I do have $1,000 I'm still paying off, but most of it paid off. Most of it dealt with ahead of time. But you get overwhelmed, right? We're constantly overwhelmed by, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. Oh, I could never do this. I could never do that. Which direction should I go, this way or that way? We don't, it's hard. That's the hard part of living. But when you sort of create the calm atmosphere in your mind and you create a routine and a practice that helps you get to know yourself better, understand your wants and needs, you can create mini plans for yourself. Then you make a decision and you walk the path. Often, this is from a painting in Italy. Often, this is what we see. These devils in our minds sitting around just shit talking us all the time. Right? Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm too tired. I mean, this is constant in my mind. I'm having an energy problem right now. Like, I don't have enough energy to do all this stuff, but I want to do it. So the scale is tipping, right, to my want. And I'm resting, I'm sleeping, I'm taking care of myself, I'm eating, I'm doing all the things, and I'm just doing as much as I can. And I call myself, I use the concept from Brooke Castillo, B minus work. I try to do my life with B minus work. When I can create B minus work, I'm creating a lot more work. Okay. And then I try again, and then I try again. But when I'm listening to those voices in my head, it's like being in hell with the devils. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, instead, we make simple choices. And one of my clients, hi, Catherine, has made the choice to focus on circles. This is what she does. You should look her up, Catherine Green, with an E on the end, Catherine Green Fine Art on Instagram. And she is just painting circles right now. She is so fascinated with it. And she's writing little blog posts and she's learning how to write an Instagram post and a blog post, right? It's baby steps as we go. The concept of baby steps and breakthroughs, we take little steps. Sometimes we have a breakthrough because we're prepared and it happens, and then we go back to the baby steps. So I love like all these circles. I'm noticing them everywhere too. This is the idea of like choosing one thing. For me, it was light and ceilings for this trip. And just enjoying the travels and seeing connections everywhere, seeing things in nature and really leaving myself open and willing to this daily living in breakthrough. I love that. God sandwich, of course, in Denmark means good sandwich. But I love that. It just means that I'm in the middle of a God sandwich all the time. I'm living in breakthrough. I'm eating a God sandwich. And I'm an atheist when it comes to the term God. But I love that. I'm open to breakthrough. I'm reading and I'm journaling and I'm seeing my symbols everywhere. So this is so just what life is for artists. And I'm sure this is for you. And you being here today is just reminding you of who you are and the power you have in your own life. Okay, I just want to share 2 pictures. These were just 2 of my favorite pieces. Igshan Adams in a museum in Hamburg. It's just threads with little beads made into the shape of a cloud. You know, it's just gorgeous. And Bernard Buffet, Still Life with Melon, just this beautiful, simple painting. And I could look at that thing for hours. I did, well, not hours, but I looked at it for a long time. So we can keep things really simple. Okay, what next? I want to offer 2 thoughts that you can borrow. And of course, I always am working using thought work, working on our thoughts, which create our emotions and then drive our actions and drive our results. I'm going to lend you these 2 thoughts to borrow. One is, I am honest, open, and willing to try, suck, fail, keep going, and be misunderstood. It's okay if we're misunderstood as artists. It's fine. Everyone doesn't have to get us. We don't have to get us. Okay, that's not the point of all of this. The point is just to live our lives like Lillian Line said, feel the life, feel the energy in our lives and work. And the second one, when we're in hard times, but we've chosen it, we've done something and it's hard, we've decided and it's hard, this thought, I choose this powerfully, has been so helpful to me. When I get stuck, I'm at my Masters of Fine Art. It's hard. I'm taking all these classes. I have to teach all these other classes. It's like, nope, I choose this powerfully. It will be over. It won't be going forever. But in the middle of it, I'm trying to do my best, which sometimes is only B- work. And that's okay. And okay, that's it. So now, if you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you'd like to be coached on regarding breakthroughs, please let me know and raise your hand or put in the chat, and let's sort of talk for a little bit. Okay, the replay of this will be at shannonborg.com Thought Salon in a couple of days, by the way. Okay, so would anyone like to say anything or to ask any questions? And I do have a couple of emailed questions that were from clients that I knew that knew they couldn't be here today. So let's just see if I can find those so you can think of something. I challenge you to think of a question. All right. Even if I don't answer it today or talk about it, give yourself the gift of asking a question. Okay, so let me find this other one. Okay. What if I have too much to do and I just don't have the time? And that's sort of the sort of the gist of this question. It's the time question. Okay, so here, let me stop sharing my screen and I will put myself up as speaker here. Okay. So the time question, what if I don't have enough time? And my answer to that is, I can't minimize workplace when I'm, okay. All right. It's okay. Technology. So my answer to that is, we all have the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours in the day. We have all made choices about, up to this point, how we're spending our time. So I also want to say that a breakthrough can happen in 1 minute. It can happen in a very short period of time. So I want you to use your imagination when it comes to time. Okay. So when you think about the concept of I don't have enough time, and Anne and I have talked about this, I talked about scheduling, and I used one of my favorite thoughts. I have luxurious amounts of time. When I started thinking that and really realizing that, I started suddenly having more time and being calmer in my time. So the idea of time and not having enough time and being overwhelmed by all the things that I have to do in the amount of time that I have is a mindset problem. Some people are great at sort of scheduling their time. Some people feel like, oh, I'm just being like a pinball going from thing to thing. I don't have control of my time. Other people have control of my time. And I just want you to realize how much control you actually have over your time. For instance, one of my coaches that I mentioned before, Brooke Castillo, she has an amazing podcast called the Life Coach School Podcast. You should listen to it. In the early episodes, she talks about this moment where she was at the playground with her kids. She had 2 little toddlers and they were playing in a little area, and she was sitting there and she was overwhelmed and exhausted. And like mothers, often say, I'm not a mother, but I have been overwhelmed and exhausted by other things. I think all humans go through this at some point. And she realized that she could just get up and walk away. She didn't have to take care of her kids. She could leave. She could walk away and never come back. She could get in her car and drive and never come back. That was physically possible for her in her life. This sounds drastic and it sounds extreme. But when you realize the range of choices that we actually do have, and then you realize that you're actually making a choice to be with the children in this moment, I choose this powerfully, it kind of opens up that moment, right? She didn't want to leave her children. She didn't want to drive off. She had the impulse of getting out of this anxiety, but she didn't want to leave her children. So she realized that she was making the choice to stay with her children, to take care of her children, to raise her children the best way she could. She was choosing this powerfully. So this is how it comes to time. If there are things in your life that you feel are overwhelming, that you don't want to do and you don't need to do and you're not going to do anymore, make that choice. Be confident enough to make the choice and clear your time. Okay. Say no. You have that power. No is a full sentence. Even with spouses, even with jobs, even with things, people who have come to rely on you. Why? Because you say yes all the time. Because we're people pleasers. This is a huge part of the imposter syndrome. And in the class, I go in deep with this. So the idea of saying yes and choosing this powerfully and choosing your time powerfully, learning how to say no, learning how to say yes to the things that really matter is all a part of time management. We just think, I don't have the time. Where am I going to fit this in? But that's not the question. The question is, how do I think about time? How do I think about my choices? And what am I doing and how am I feeling? What are my thoughts around it? When you change your thoughts, you can change your schedule. Okay. All right. What does anyone else have another?
So,
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because time has always been a challenge for me. And I love your thing about I have luxurious amounts of time, and I have, told myself that sometimes. But I'm just coming off of, I just did my first master class. And so the preparation for it was way more than I was expecting. And I wound up staying up all night, like several nights, and just totally exhausting myself preparing for it.
Mm-hmm.
And in this path that I've been on of learning to be a coach and learning to run a business and stuff, um, I have not um, I have not made dedicated time to work on my art, and that's really becoming an issue for me. So, okay, so today I was thinking I'm going to start setting aside at least Friday afternoons to work on art. Well, so I thought, okay, after the workshop today, then I'll work on my art. Well, there's like things that I need to do for my business, and I just haven't got that part figured out,
Mm-hmm.
how
Yeah.
to
Well, I
do
feel
all
your
that.
pain. I feel your pain, but I do have a couple of suggestions. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Of course, there's this the basic thing of, listing the exact things you need to do, your to-do list, right?
Hmm.
And prioritizing them. Okay, so say you have, when you say there are things that you need to do for your business, can you tell me what those things are? Like,
Yeah.
what
So
else?
I have I've been doing a newsletter, sending out a newsletter on Fridays, and I don't even have it done for today.
Newsletter is always the thing, right?
Yeah. Um,
Elizabeth.
and they always say that when you're not consistent, then you're breaking trust with your people, and so I really feel like I really have to try to stay consistent with that. Um, but I was having a bad case of writer's block, and um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
And
so
so
yeah, but
that's
that's
one
kind of the
thing.
main thing. And then just like maybe I think there's some follow-up emails and stuff I need to do.
Okay. All right. Okay. So when it comes to that thing, let's talk about newsletter because this is always the way it is. We think that there's a certain way that should be done. This is questioning your assumptions. Okay. So question your assumptions. I heard the sentence that you said. They say that when you don't send it out consistently, you're breaking trust with your people. Okay. Who's they?
Um, well, people that I've read, but I'm in a coaching program, and so
Yeah. And a lot
people,
of people say that.
yeah,
Right. The point is that you're supposed to try to be consistent with your newsletter. Okay.
yeah.
So now this is where artists know thyself really comes in. And I would say, and I don't even know you that well, but I would say you are vigilant Okay. You are a perfectionist, or, you're the person who wants to do things really well. You think that if you do things really well, you will succeed. That seems obvious, but it's not true.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people who don't do things very well and succeed, right? Is that
Yeah.
true? And there's a lot of people that do things really well and don't succeed. How can that be? Okay, that challenges your assumption that when you do things really well and work really hard and put all the time into it, you will succeed. I want you to question that on both ends,
Yeah.
right? Because it seems like the news, it seems like that's the truth. It's not. There's a range of possible truths and possible worlds out there of people who don't work hard and succeed, people who work hard and don't succeed, people who half-ass everything and make millions, people who don't do much and don't succeed, right?
Yeah.
So you're the thought that's behind all of this, and I'm kind of making this assumption on you. You tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
That if you don't do your newsletter and don't do all the things, you're trying to do all the things to do the things right, so you will succeed. That means that you'll have a successful business, you'll have more clients, you'll have, you know,
Yeah.
engagement,
Yes.
you're doing things
Yeah.
right, and you'll make money and things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you start to question all of those things, suddenly it brings in this sort of like A, overwhelm, B, like, wait, isn't there a path? Isn't this how things supposed to work? If it doesn't work that way, then how does it work? I don't know how it works, right? It's confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is big picture, but I'm getting back to your Friday newsletter. Okay.
Sure.
You are going to create your business your way.
Hmm.
Okay. So yes, you could do that newsletter, exactly, work 4 hours on it if you want to. That's one way to do it. But I want you to list 5 other ways to do it. Just like I question the assumptions about when you work hard, you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you do the newsletter exactly the way you've always done it, that means it's a good newsletter. Okay. What about if you duplicate a newsletter from last time, put one picture in it, one link, and set a timer for yourself for 20 minutes.
Hmm.
When it's done, and you can't do any more. That's it. You will be, first of all, you'll be amazed at how much you can do in 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And second of all, you'll be finding out if that is something that you can try in your business again.
Uh-huh.
If that is a mode that you can work. Now that might seem like B minus work, right? That's B minus work. One image, one link. But on the other end of it, when I get your newsletter, you know what I think? I think, oh, what a beautiful, simple, elegant newsletter. There's one image and one thing for me to click on. I don't have all this shit I have to wade through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I mean about time, questioning assumptions, and doing what you can in prioritizing and doing what you can in that small amount of time. Timers are so helpful.
Yeah.
So your
That
brain
is a
is
good
telling
idea.
you, I don't want to do art. That's for you. That's for you. You're selfish if you do art. Picasso painted 12 hours a day.
Mm.
He had 5 wives, who knows how many children. Some people say he made bad choices, but he made excuse my French, fuck ton of art. Because he was dedicated to it and that was his top priority.
Mm-hmm.
So this, all of this, like, I'm talking to myself, ladies. I want to dedicate more time to my art too. And I'm in this process always of making these decisions, putting it on my scheduling and then going, and this has happened in the past. Oh, I have to do this or that. I'm not going to get to the studio after all. Why? Because I'm thinking I'm not as important. My art's not as important. It's not as good. It's not as important as all this other stuff. All this other stuff is people pleasing. It's doing what people are telling me to do. It's doing business the right way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to question all of that. Feel free to question all of it and just do it how you feel would work for you in this situation where your priority is to get into the studio. How can I imagine a way, dream up a way that will help me to get into the studio? And that may be one picture and one link. And sometimes it just never had crossed your mind before. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why opening your mind and looking at how other people do it and looking at your thoughts and going, what are my thoughts about this? Oh, my thoughts are if I work hard, I will succeed. Is that true? That's a Byron Katie thing. Byron Katie is an amazing coach, mentor, thinker. And she has this little set of questions. Do you know her?
No.
Okay, check her out on YouTube. And she has this little set of questions. And the first one is it true? Is this
Mm-hmm.
true?
Yeah.
And if it is true, or if it's not true, you know, what would happen if it were true? What would happen if it wasn't true? Because we
Mm-hmm.
just don't even know what's in our mind. We don't even know that we're not questioning everything we grew up with.
Yeah.
And we do that on big ways, but we need to do it in little ways in our own business and art too. Okay, so what does
Thank
that
you.
bring up for you? How does that feel?
Um, that feels good because it feels like choice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. Elizabeth, is there anything from you? Um,
This whole thing brings up a couple of different things on the concept of the artist that you showed that tried so many different things. And that's something that I've been questioned on a lot
mhm.
for having some different styles and paths that I've experimented on. And I always say what ties it together is the concept that I'm doing something that calms my mind
Mm.
at the moment. And it may be that one is a meditative Enso and a semic writing, and another one is a big long painting of a reflection on glass, and
Mhm.
what ties those two things together.
Yeah.
So it's nice to think that there are artists out there who have allowed themselves to try such disconnected things.
Yeah.
Um, but the time thing, and oh my God, Shannon, that's my issue. And sometimes it isn't a matter of being able to say no, except in the long term.
Yeah.
I know I have to quit one of the other jobs that I have.
Yeah.
It's eating me alive. It has demands that are non-negotiable.
Mhm.
And it's, I've already started the conversation. I even met with my financial advisor to say, can I survive
Hmm.
if I quit this
Great
job?
steps. Yeah.
So I'm taking steps. It's got to happen, but it probably isn't going to happen for, some months. Meanwhile, I've got this great big open studios that I got juried into that's the biggest challenge I've faced so far. So I'm juggling these two things that seem non-negotiable, like there isn't a lot of I can choose or not choose to do this.
Or rather,
There's
you've
certain,
already chosen, and so
yeah,
you've
I've
already made
chosen
those
to do them.
decisions.
Yeah,
They weren't forced on you. You took the job and
yeah,
you took the
yeah,
studio. So this is where the choice, it's really important.
yeah,
You know, if someone came along and chopped off your fingers, that would probably be not your choice. But
right.
pretty much everything else in our lives, like those two things were your choice.
So yeah, they were choices, and I had to do the job in order to support my mom. And now that she's
Yeah.
gone, I have, and what I want, and it's coming at the end of October after the Open Studios is over, is getting away to where I can have time to think
Hmm.
and and to make some of these decisions where there isn't this do this right now, back and forth, back and forth. I'm not good at organizing my time. I'm not good at setting up blocks and saying I'm only available
Hmm.
during these hours for this project,
Why aren't
these
you good at
hours.
that?
I don't know. It's just, it's not a skill I've ever developed, I guess. I'm always people pleasing, responding, whatever, running into the studio, doing a little bit more on the art, running back to the computer, taking care of the next
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
and as a result, there isn't time to develop a coherent where I feel like I need to focus a longer period of time on
Mhm. On the
each
work. Mhm.
thing in order to get it done.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So what do you think like some small step would be that would give you a big, a 2 hour chunk of time? Like where in your day could you find a 2 hour chunk of time where nobody would it be late at night? Would it be early in the morning? Would it be?
I have two ends of the day that I am generally try not to schedule anything before 10 in the morning,
Mhm.
not because I'm not up, but because, well, that's my time to go water the garden. That's my time to maybe work in the studio. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's definitely time for this, but it's time for me to
Mhm.
do personal things. And
Mhm.
then in the evening, it's also time to do personal things, but that may be, oh my God, the fruit trees are all getting ripe at the same time. So I've got a refrigerator full of fruit that's all got to get dealt with, or it's going to rot.
How many times a year does that fruit rot or happen?
I mean, this is the end of the summer, so
Yeah.
this is
Right.
the
It's
time.
seasonal.
That's not an
Okay.
ongoing problem. Yeah,
Right. Exactly. Now, the world is always going to be ongoing. All of these things are
yeah,
ongoing.
yeah.
But say you get up at 7. Okay. I don't know when you get up.
Depends on the day, but anywhere from 5 to 7.
Okay. So let's split the difference, 6:30. 6:30 to 10, that's 4 hours. Doesn't that seem like a long time? It seems like a sort of a long time, doesn't it? When you think, oh, I
Yeah,
have 4 hours to work in what a luxurious
yeah. And
amount
then
of
it
time.
goes so fast,
It goes really fast. Because why? Because you're not making choices about it.
right?
It's always
About
there.
what happens within that four
Yeah. What
hours.
happens
Yeah.
within that? And
Instead
so,
of
so what about
ping-ponging.
tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning, is there anything special happening in that 4 hour period tomorrow morning?
No, Saturday is the one day that's open this week.
Okay, so let's just say tomorrow in that 4 hour period, you decide that you're going to take just 2 of the hours, that's only half that time, and you're not going to wander around and go to the garden or, whatever. You're going to go into your studio, shut the door, lock the door, put earplugs on, or your music, and you're going to stand in front of your canvas or do whatever it is you want to do, your journal, and you're going to do what you say you want to do for those 2 hours. How does that feel when I say that?
But yeah, I might have to shift the time because there's certain maintenance things that's got to happen when I get up in the morning.
Like I
But
said, you only have two, you have
but
2 out of the 4. Like,
right, but it may be that it's 7:30 to 9:30 instead of
Mhm.
6:30 to 8:30, and then the first hour is the maintenance
Yeah.
chores
So
that
maybe
just
you can say,
the
I'm going to
dog
do all the
needs to
maintenance in 1
happen.
hour. You know, you probably
Yeah,
can't because you've done it so much. You know what
yeah,
needs to be done. You can do
yeah,
that and say, I'm looking forward to that 8:30 time. When it hits 8:30, I'm in the studio. I'm not saying this
yeah,
is how it needs to be every day,
yeah,
but I just want you to realize that this is
yeah,
what's happening to
yeah.
your mind.
That committed.
This
Yeah,
these devils.
right.
Remember that
Yeah,
slide I had?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're letting them run rampant like toddlers in your brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now it's
And
time for Elizabeth to make some
that's what my,
put her foot down,
yeah.
you know. And you don't have to do it every day. You just have to do it for one day. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
the recovery community, we're recovering from people pleasing, from not being in control of our own lives, not being in control of our schedules, not making art. Just like Julia Cameron says in The Artist's Way, that's a recovery 12-step program for people who are not making art like they should.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. Right? So you're recovering. So you don't have to do it every day. You just have to do it one day at a time. When you think about that one day, just think about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't think about everything else.
Yeah.
That's what we call future tripping.
Yeah.
And, and we do that a lot. Oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if I don't water those trees? What's going to happen if I don't do the fruit? What's going to happen if I don't take the job? What's going to, it's like all the future tripping.
Yeah.
And your art, just as you said, is this gift that helps you be in the present moment and stay calm. So you need that. You need that for your healing. If you don't have that, you're crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So mama needs to go to therapy with her art in her studio. When mama's happy, everybody's happy.
Right.
Okay, so this is when I say the empress, be the artist, be the empress. The empress needs to be alone. No one's going to give you that time.
Yeah.
And stop pretending you don't have any power. It's this sort of like, I love this quote by, I think, gosh, who? Maya Angelou. The worst, oh, I'm gonna look it up because it's so good. Um, okay, hold on. Just a second. I should always start with this. It's Alice Walker. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're overwhelmed, we feel like we don't have any power. We're giving it away to everybody else.
Yeah.
We think, oh, I can't say no. But this is the thing. Remember how I said Brooke said, I could just drive my car away right now and leave my children in this park. Probably somebody will pick them up, right? That is a possibility. And in fact, some people do that, right? So in the world, it is a possibility. So when you say, I had to take the job to take care of my mother, you chose to take the job because you wanted to take care of your mother. A lot of people abandon their parents. I'm not saying no one should ever do that, but I'm just saying because of who you are and your morals and your ethics, you chose to do that.
Right.
That was your power that did that. So acknowledge that, choose this powerfully.
Yeah.
And now you have different powers. Well, you always have the same power, but you have the power over your time.
Yeah.
The problem is not your time. Okay, it's not all the things. The problem is you're not taking your power over your time.
I feel like I'm working towards it, but
Yeah,
I'm not there yet. I'm
right.
still in the center of the
The
tornado.
maelstrom, yeah. But you can find
Yeah.
that like little time of like the eye and the calm in the eye
Yeah.
of the storm.
Yeah.
And if that is 2 hours in the morning, if you have to get up at 6, go from 6 to 8, carve it
When
out.
you're talking about I'm sorry,
No, no,
I'm
no.
going back to something you were talking to Anne about earlier about the newsletter, and that's been my bugaboo.
Yeah.
And if you one picture, one button, but the button then takes you where? And I've been thinking about this because I know what I want to do with my next newsletter.
Hmm.
I keep saying I'm going to do it today, and it keeps not happening today. Um, by the way, Anne, tell everybody when they sign up, you'll get one or two of these a month because that's the best I can do.
That's great. Yay. That's one or two more than you have done in the past. And I've received 3 of yours. So
You have. You
you're
probably
doing
got
great.
the same one twice.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
Okay. So go on.
Um,
Go on.
Now I lost
You
the
said that
thread.
your button.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But then I felt like, okay, my button has to take me, it's about a process. I want to write about my process of the latest painting going through a reincarnation.
mhm.
And so now I feel like, okay, now I need to write a blog
Yeah.
where I talk about the steps of the reincarnation because not everybody's going to want to do it. They may want to just see the pre and
Mhm,
post.
mhm. Well,
And
this is the
yet
thing. You
somebody
don't
might
work.
want to go to the blog and find out how do you get from here to there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll talk about this for a second. First, you
Okay.
determine where they go and what they want. There's only one picture, one button. Don't worry about, oh, they may want to do this. They may want to do that. Don't please everybody. You just have them. This is how it's going to work. The Empress says, this is how it works. Here's how it works. You get my
But
newsletter. You see, hold on. You can see a picture. You see a button, 2 sentences that says what's going to be in the button. You click the button, you go to the button. See, that's how it works. So you don't worry about all the other stuff of like what people want to do. Okay.
uh-huh.
Okay. So you decide how you want it to work. Then a blog post can be the same 20-minute thing. Very simple. 3 pictures, the picture before, the transformation in the middle, the transformation after with 2 sentences under it.
So
Duplicate
it
the
could
last
be that
one and make it very simple.
the newsletter the one picture is the old painting with the lead in is there reincarnation in
Oh, I love
art?
it.
And click on the button to read the story and see where this went.
Yeah.
And then in the blog post, put the process
Hmm.
painting pictures
Yeah. And
and a
just a few,
little
just
bit
3, just a tiny.
yeah, I've taken, yeah, I can do that. And then it doesn't have to go into all the details,
Right.
but it can it can be something but that would all go in the blog
Yeah.
post.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, all
Yeah. And
together.
so
That's
every single newsletter could be that the same way. And
yeah,
therefore next time you just duplicate the newsletter,
yeah,
replace the picture, replace the button, The blog,
Yeah,
okay, the blog.
sometimes the next one might be getting ready for the art show
Yeah, yeah.
or, and
But
I've done that
again, you only have to put three
before.
pictures and a few sentences
Yeah.
under each thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And set yourself a timer. And if you go like you said, it took you 3 hours or whatever, but
Oh,
next time,
I was a day and a half I was on with MailChimp trying to get them to fix this problem of why I couldn't send out a welcome letter.
the automation.
Yeah.
What was the answer?
Yeah, because it wasn't working in art storefronts ever since I changed my email.
Mm,
And I'm thinking I'm sending out welcome letters and I'm writing all these individual letters and nobody's getting them.
hmm
Nobody's responding. And
mm,
so I finally figured out it's an art storefronts connection problem. I can fix this by doing it in MailChimp, but
hmm
then I've got to set it up in MailChimp. And it took them a day and a half
To figure that
of
out.
being on the phone to figure it out.
Right. That's too bad. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So someday I'm probably going to just switch over to Squarespace, which you said is easier, but I
Yeah, it's
can't
all in
figure
one
that. I
place.
can't
Right.
learn it all when, yeah, and I've got this contract with Art Storefronts that I'm
Yeah.
stuck with.
Well, and that's all up to you. And,
Yeah,
at some point you may just say,
yeah.
um, sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is I got to keep doing this because I've already sunk all this cost into it.
Yeah.
Right. Um, but also just consider the other side. What would happen if you changed how much, what would that be positive and negative? Do the pros and cons for each side, right? The cons might be more money
Hmm.
or lost money, but the pros might be you have everything in one place. You know, you don't have that day and a half lost anymore because
Yeah.
the technology is all merged. I'm not saying to do that or not do it. And that's
Right.
and
Right.
but
It
one
would,
thing like this is great for your quarterly review. Okay. In the meantime, yes, you had to do that day and a half. But at January 1st, say, I'm going to make that decision January 1st. I'm going to make the decision to either keep it for another 6 months or give it up. And then if you keep it for another 6 months, don't think about it for another 6 months, right?
hmm hmm
Because then that just constant like worrying about it just takes more time and more like energy that you don't need to give up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also on the welcome email, the automation, you know, if you see people signing up for your newsletter, you can always just send them a newsletter. Like send them like if you just send your weekly newsletter to everybody who's on the list, you don't need a welcome. I saw the welcome, you did that, but you don't really need one,
Hmm.
you know. So again, you chose to do that day and a half to fix that problem because you want to send out a welcome email. That's your
And I
choice.
want to know that they're getting it and I've entered their email correctly and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
And
So you were willing to sit there and go through.
right.
Yeah. And
Right.
you know.
And I used to personalize every one. I thank you for coming to this studio at
Mm,
this event and all of that. And I decided to opt for the simple welcome. And then,
yeah,
if
great.
necessary, if they bought something, I'll follow it up with another personal email.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to sort of like just look at your time and, you know, try to
Yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
you're spending it how you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
So good. I mean, I've seen a lot of progress in that. And again, my favorite quote, well, actually, I guess it's my mantra. Life can feel like failure the whole time until you stop and look back and see how far you've come.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
Like
I
this is
think
that's how I
this
felt
concept,
with this
sorry.
with this workshop. No, you go ahead. Tell me. I want to hear.
I was just going to say this whole concept of luxurious amounts of time takes on a very different meaning when you're nearing the end part of your life. I've just, you know, between and you're facing certain non-negotiables, both in your own health and in example of losing my mom. Now I realize I have a precious, finite amount of time. How do I want to spend it? So I don't have forever. I think I thought I had a lot longer than I probably do. And I need to make choices about how I'm spending that time. And
Right.
that's what's helping me to say, it's time to quit that job. I've got to get through these projects and then I'm going to let it go.
Yes. And it's not just the time and the finite time we have, but how do you want to think about and feel about that time? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to feel, oh, I only have this much time left and I have to do all these things? Or
Yeah. No, I want to
you
feel
want
like
to
I've got
feel, I
space
have
around
luxurious
me.
amount of time,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right? I'm
want to
going to spend
feel
every one of my days until the end of my life feeling like I just have all the time in the world.
with within this
Yeah.
parameter.
With
Yeah,
your
that
life.
each that there's space around me
Mhm.
instead of the walls closing in.
And that happens up here
Yeah.
and in here.
Yeah.
And you do have control over it. It takes time to change it, right? It's baby steps, like every day doing that practice of practicing your thoughts and writing them down and thinking about them, being in the garden and just saying, you know what? Here I am in my garden and I have luxurious amounts of time in my garden right this moment.
Mm.
I'm watering, I have all this fruit, this amazing fruit, and I get to put this abundance by to so I can enjoy these little sun gems in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And that kind of choice and that kind of thinking about it makes your time totally transformed.
Yeah.
And I see you working on it. I see you, Elizabeth. I see this changing. So give yourself
Well,
some,
that's good. I'm
you know,
not sure I do. I guess I do. Last Sunday, when I hadn't painted a pastel since before my mom died. I just went into this like, okay, all I can do is this little bitty dinky stuff that'll sell at an art fair. I can't do anything more. And realizing I needed to get back to it for art trails, I went through this real crisis of confidence. But I heard your voice in my head and I went and sat down out by my pond and worked on those thoughts and then went back in and got to work and finished doing this resurrected painting. It's not starting from scratch. It's not a brand new thing, but it got me back to doing it.
oh, oh,
Um,
that's
and,
amazing.
and and your voice was in my head,
Well,
guiding me through that.
I'm so glad to hear that. And, again, in the rooms of recovery, they say, we'll love you until you learn to love yourself. That can sound a little, patronizing, but I believe in you. My job and my passion in life is to believe that you have the power to transform your own thoughts into the thoughts that you want to think about. Sometimes we just don't even know what those are. So I'm here to kind of point them out and to help you realize you could think differently about
Yeah.
something. And now when you're learning that skill of, how could I think differently about this? Could I think that I have lots of time? How would that feel? Because we think it's not true. Oh, but wait, I don't have a lots of time. But wait a second. We all have the same. I have these 2 beautiful hours in the morning when I get to get to feed my plants. That's my thinking time. That's my feeling time. You know what I mean? It's like we get to transform that into what we want, create that atmosphere. And I see you doing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. So, okay, perfect timing.
So,
You know,
I just wanted to
yeah.
throw something in here personal.
Mhm.
So, I couldn't believe when you said that you went to Aarhus
Mm,
because my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, is from Aarhus,
wow.
and he and his family emigrated to the U.S. 65 years ago, and they had a big reunion in Aarhus this summer.
Oh my
And
God.
so, like, I think like 16 members of the family went over there, and I just thought that was so cool. And it's not a place that everybody hears about,
Right.
right? And so when you said that you went there and it was the same place, I just thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the thing. It's like when you set these little projects for yourself, and it's like Carl Jung said with synchronicity. And this is what our brain does. It's the reticular activating system. When you see one thing, you start to
yeah,
notice the blue cars or whatever.
right.
This is synchronicity. Our brains want to feel synchronicity because we want to feel connected. So when you set a project for yourself, you know, and I'm just going to throw this out here, Elizabeth, say that you decide you're going to, every time you go into the garden this week and water, you're going to gather a different leaf. You're going to do a leaf project. You're going to bring a
Yeah, I've
leaf
been
in.
thinking about doing a series because I've come back to something I was taught a while ago
Mhm.
that working in a series is the way to make progress, not doing something different with every single thing. So I thought, well, what if I did a series of 8 by 8 paintings of something that I looked really, really closely at?
Mhm.
I zeroed in and found something in it. So
Yeah, and you're in the
that's my
garden
thought.
every day, right? See, so that time suddenly is
Yeah.
useful. You're gathering
Yeah.
the most interesting leaves or whatever. And so I'm bringing this
And
in
I've been
to
taking pictures of the things that I see
cool, but bring them
to
in
be
too,
able to go.
so you can feel them and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, bringing it back to Anne, just like this idea of when you create a project for yourself, suddenly that synchronicity starts to happen, and we meet new people, or you find connections other places, or whatever. And so like for this project, I love that for you, Elizabeth, because it's making using the time you do have in a very productive way too. And it's a very
Mhm.
artistic way, right? It's like and say you do a series, you can do a series and then just tweak one little thing, or do it in a different format, or you know like I love the series concept too. And when like Lillian Line, right, she did all these things all over the place, like you said, and that's interesting, and it opens up, gives us the permission. But she also did a lot of the same thing, series of things. So yeah, it's all so
Mhm.
cool. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to go. Thank you so much for sticking with me. And thank you, replay people and students and clients. I really look forward to sort of continuing this concept of breakthrough. Where does it come from? If you have new thoughts about this, if you have new input or suggestions, or experiences that you have had around breakthrough, I would love to hear it, because I am going to sort of add more to this idea, whether it's a course or a workshop or a summit, something like that. We'll see where it goes. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome, and have a really lovely weekend. And I hope you enjoy all of your luxurious time this weekend. Okay, bye.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.